Hi everyone, welcome back to Brush and Bubbles, where we have a brand new painting tutorial for you all. Today we're going to be painting a dinosaur. So stay tuned, where I'll be taking you all through step by step of this dinosaur painting. I'll be breaking the painting down into manageable steps, and I'll also talk you through everything you'll need to create this at home. So let's jump straight into our tutorial and create our dinosaurs. In front of me, I have my canvas. I'm going to be painting in landscape today. If you want to, you can always turn your canvas around and paint in portrait instead. I have two different size brushes, a medium square shaped brush and then a smaller pointy one. I've then got some kitchen towel to dab my brushes on, a glass of water, a palette to pop all of my paints in, and my acrylic paints. So like always, please feel free to change up the colours for your painting. You don't have to follow along with the colours that I'm using. In my paint palette, I have quite a lot of white, some purple, dark green, blue and yellow paint. I'm going to go for a very light purple lilac colour for my background, but like I mentioned before, you can do any colour that you want. So my background is going to be a nice light lilac, and then I'm going to do a sort of turquoise colour for my dinosaur. So I'd have a little think about what colour you want your dinosaur to be, and then maybe pick a contrasting colour for your background. Taking my big brush, I'm just going to mix up my lilac colour now. So I'm going to pick up quite a lot of this white paint and move it over to a spare bit of my palette. We just want to make sure we're mixing up enough paint to cover the whole background. And then to this white, I'm just going to start gradually adding a little bit of purple at a time and giving it a good mix until I'm happy with the colour. As soon as you're happy with your colour for your background, I would just add a few drops of water into this just to keep the paint nice and fluid. Just give it a good mix in. As soon as you're ready, we're just taking this colour and covering up the whole background of our canvas. So I just like to use quite long sweeping motions with my paintbrush, covering it all up, and then make sure that whenever you get to the top of your canvas, you just carefully turn it around and or lift it up even, and just paint the tops and the sides and the bottom as well. We just want to make sure our canvas is nice and covered up. Once you've covered up all of the background of your canvas, we're just going to give our big brush a good wash in our water. While we wait for our background to dry a little bit, I'm just going to move my canvas carefully over to the side. And I've got here a scrap piece of paper and a pencil. So I just want to talk you all through the rough design and shape of our dinosaur. So if you wanted to grab a piece of paper and a pencil to practice this as well, I would do that now. So we're just going to break down the shape of the body to start with. So we're going to start with the dinosaur's back and its belly. So essentially what this is a little bit like a rainbow shape, or half a melon, or a semicircle. So I like to bring it out this sort of angle here, curve it around like so. And then at this bit here, you can just draw a slight curved line to join up on the other side. So the great thing about painting and drawing in dinosaurs is we want them to look nice and natural. They all come in different shapes and sizes, so don't worry too much about being neat with your dinosaur. We want them to have lots of character. So once you have that shape there, we're then going to add the dinosaur's head. Now this is a little bit like how a turtle will look. So the head sort of scoops out from the side and it just curves around. So I'm just going to bring the neck of the head just around here. Then it curves up a little bit and then it scoops back round till about there. And then what we'll do is we'll have our legs here. So the first leg is a little bit like this, like a sort of square or a triangle, a rectangle kind of shape, but with curved edges. And then the other foot comes out from the back of this one, but it's slightly back a bit, so it's stepped up a bit. So I'm just going to bring the line up from there and then scoop it back up, which comes so it almost meets that line there. What we can then do is move over to this side and add in our tail. So the tail just sort of follows around the back section of our dinosaur. And again, it's just another curved line, but it kind of comes up into a point. So a little bit like a banana shape. And then we just round it at the end, and then it curves back round to come and meet this line here again. And then the dinosaur's back legs are a little bit like the front. So we've got one that comes down here, again just curving the edges, and the other one will be slightly shorter because this is the one that's furthest away. So we've got this kind of rough shape for our dinosaur. Obviously we'll be filling it all in with paint so we can change the shape slightly. And then once we've done that, we'll be adding in the spikes on the dinosaur's back. So I'll just show you a couple of them now, but then we'll come back to this and I'll re-show you the shapes once we get to that section. But what they sort of look like are little, almost like houses that sit on top of the dinosaur's back. So we have that triangle shape at the top, a little bit like the house roof, and then they come down. And then what they do is they get a little bit bigger and slightly wider as we get to the top of the dinosaur's back. And then over here they'll be a bit smaller. They come around to meet the head. So I can show you that again later on, but this is the rough shape for our dinosaur. And then we're going to be filling in this whole area with our first colour. So this is your chance to decide which colour you want to go for. This is where I'm going to go for quite a light turquoise shade. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the top of the dinosaur's back and the dinosaur's eye, and then the outline in a slightly darker coloured turquoise. So I would give this shape a little practice first if you want to, and then we'll move over to our painting. While I give my canvas a little bit longer to dry, I'm just going to mix up my two different colours now. So like I mentioned, I'm going to go for more of a turquoise colour for my dinosaur. So I'm just picking up my bigger brush and then moving over to my palette. I'm going to mix up that colour now. So I'm going to start with a scoop of white as the base. I'm just moving it over to a different dish. And then to this white, I'm going to add a little bit of my dark green and a little bit of my blue, and I'm going to give that a good mix and see what colour I come out with. So I've got a lovely light turquoise colour here. So this is going to be the main colour I'm going to use for my dinosaur's body. And then I'm just going to mix up a slightly darker version of this. So without washing off my brush, I'm just going to create this colour here, still using the colour that I've already got on my brush as my base. I'm then just going to pick up some more dark green and some more blue, and I'm going to give that a good mix. So here I have my two different shades that I'm going to use predominantly for my dinosaur. So as soon as you're ready, just make sure that your canvas is nice and dry. If you want to speed up the process and it's not dry yet, you can always give it a gentle dry with a hairdryer if you have one handy, or you can just give it a gentle wave in the air and that will help speed up the drying process. Taking my small brush, I'm just going to pick up some of this lighter shade of blue, but I just want to add a little bit of water in there before I apply it to the canvas, just to thin it out slightly. So just mix in that water really well. So just preparing your brush, just make sure you haven't got too much paint at the end. I like to just dash off any of the excess paint. We're now just going to copy this design that we've already done onto our canvas. So starting with the back and the belly first. So just decide now where on your canvas you want this to go. You might want it further towards the bottom, or you might want it smack bang in the middle of your canvas. It's totally up to you. I would just say, remember, you can always start smaller and gradually make it bigger. It's obviously easier to make it bigger than it is to sort of make it smaller afterwards. So I'm just going to start by carefully drawing in that mound for the back of my dinosaur. Next, I'm just going to connect this just by doing a sloped line connecting each of the ends. I'm now going to move over and paint in the dinosaur's head. So again, just bring it out from the left-hand side. I'm just going to curve the end around and bring it back to meet that section of our dinosaur. So it looks a little bit like a tortoise. As soon as you're happy with that, I'm just going to draw in the first leg. So this just comes down here, again in sort of a rectangle-like shape with a curved edge for the ends of the dinosaur's feet. The next leg will be slightly shorter, so I'm just bringing it up slightly, bringing it around to meet the belly of the dinosaur. So I'm keeping my head and my legs at the moment slightly smaller than I want them to be, just so that I can control how big they're going to be. Once I've filled them in, I can make them slightly bigger. So I'm now going to move on to the tail of our dinosaur. So again, this sort of swoops down from the back into that kind of upwards banana-like shape. And then it's thinner at the end, so I'm just going to round it off at the end. And then it gets slightly thicker as it comes to meet the back of our dinosaur. I'm now going to do the back legs. So again, this one's going to be slightly longer, just keeping with that rectangle shape with the curved edges. And it comes down to meet this area where the tail meets the body. And then the other leg is slightly shorter, just like we did with the first ones. It sort of sticks out from behind. Once you have your rough design in there, all we're going to do is take the same colour and fill it all in. So you can either do this with your small brush or your big brush. It's totally up to you. Once we've filled in the middle part of the dinosaur, this is when we can start changing the shape slightly if we want to. So you can always make the head a little bit bigger, or you might want to round the back slightly. You might want to make the legs a little bit longer. I would just take a small step back and just decide what you think you might need for your dinosaur. So I'm just making the legs slightly longer. Switching over to my bigger brush, I'm just going to pick up the same colour paint, and I'm just going to give the dinosaur's back a little bit more of a mound. So pushing the bristles of this medium sort of square brush down, I'm letting them fan out and I'm dragging them along, and I'm just using the bristles to help me get that sort of shape within the dinosaur's back. Going back to my smaller brush, I'm just going to make the head a tiny little bit longer. As soon as you're happy with the shape of your dinosaur and it's all filled in, we can just wash off our small brush. We're now going to use the darker colour that we've mixed up already, and we're just going to very carefully start painting in these little top sections of our dinosaur, the ones that I showed you that look like houses. So with your paintbrush, you can just start adding these in. So it's just good to do the little top, like the roof of the house, and then your next one will come out from it. But as you start getting further and further down the dinosaur's back towards where you're meeting the tail, they are just going to naturally start getting a little bit shorter and lower. So you can just practice this if you want first on your design. Till they become almost just like triangles at the very end. So remember, there's absolutely no rush with this whatsoever. All I'm going to do is just take my smaller brush and I'm going to add a few drops of water back into this darker shade and give it a good mix. The other tip I would suggest that you do is just pick up some of this paint, find a spare bit of your palette, push the bristles of the brush down onto the palette, and then twist the handle of the brush as you drag it along. As you can see, it leaves a little trail of paint, but what it does is it brings your brush to a nice point, so it's much easier for you to paint finer details with. So whenever you're ready, you can just carefully start to add in these little house-like shapes on the top of your dinosaur's back. I would just say be careful not to smudge the body of the dinosaur if it's still wet while you're doing this. So I'm just making those triangle shapes at the top that look like roofs, and then just bringing them down to meet the back of the dinosaur. As soon as you've drawn these in, all we're going to do is fill it in with the same colour paint. So again, you can just take your time, be nice and careful not to smudge where the dinosaur's back is because the paint might still be wet. And you can just fill in all of these little shapes with the same colour paint. So taking this same darker shade, what we can do is just outline our dinosaur. So I'm just going to very carefully, again, just dash off any excess paint from my brush. I'm just going to very carefully just start outlining all the way around the face, the legs, the belly, and then all the way up to meet the other side of the tail. And the great thing about outlining the dinosaur is that we can then start to see where the legs sort of end and start. So I've got the front leg there. I'm then going to bring the line down to meet the belly. And then I will outline the back leg as well. Down in front. Then this one will be behind it. Once you're happy with the outline of our dinosaur, we're then just going to add in a little eye. So I'm just picking up this darker shade again, and I'm adding quite a lot to the end of my brush. And then coming over here to the head, I'm going to place the eye towards the center on the top half of the eye. So I'm going to place it around there. Just going to do a little dot. With this same shade, what we can do is just add tiny little dashes at the top section of our dinosaur's back, just to add a little bit of detail in. So I'm just doing tiny little lines, just spaced out towards the top part of our dinosaur. If you want to give your dinosaur a little smiling face, then you can just take some of this darker shade, and we're just going to do a small curved line going up. I'm then just going to add a couple of little triangle shapes just up here where the dinosaur's head is. So just with that same darker shade, one smaller one, one slightly bigger one. As soon as you're happy with that, I'm just going to wash off my little brush again. I'm going to move over to my palette and mix up a really light shade of yellow. So just make sure you've got all of that blue or whichever colour you've used for your dinosaur. Just make sure that's all off your brush. And if you've used yellow for your dinosaur, then maybe you want to use a different colour for this. You might want to use a blue or a green. So I'm just going to mix up a very, very light shade of yellow. So I've got my white there. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of yellow and give it a mix in. Taking this yellow colour, I'm just going to add a few extra little lines on the top of the dinosaur's back. So then going back to my lighter shade, I'm just going to pick up some with my small brush, and I don't want too much of this on my brush. I'm dashing off most of it. All I'm going to do is go back over to the spikes, and I'm just going to add little shapes just to symbolise where the top section and maybe some of the sides of these kind of shapes are, just so that we can really see them. So I'm only pushing down lightly with my paintbrush, but it just gives it that little bit of highlight just around these sort of spikes. As a last finishing touch, I'm just going to add a few little bits of grass around where our dinosaur is standing. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water back into both of my shades here and just really mix them in so they're nice and fluid. And then taking both of these colours, I'm just going to focus these towards around where the feet of the dinosaur are. So I'm just going to do little sort of crisscross flicks going up. I might pick up the darker shade and add some of these over the top. So we're just creating a very subtle grass-like shape around our dinosaur, just by using those two colours that we've already used. And if you haven't used green or blues for your dinosaur, you could just mix up some of these now, just using the white, the green, the blue. This is your moment to take a little stand back and decide if there's anything else you want to add to your dinosaur. Once you've added in all of the details that you want to your dinosaur, you have then completed your masterpiece. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope that you all enjoyed that, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you get a little notification every time we have a brand new painting tutorial go live. And if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give us a little thumbs up. Thanks so much everyone, and I really look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye!